Okay, so let's be honest. Getting a regulatory inquiry can
Hmm.
feel a lot like getting called to the principal's office.
Right.
You know, your palms get sweaty and you start thinking a mile a minute, and suddenly
Hmm.
compliance is like your number one priority.
Totally.
But don't worry,
Yeah.
we're going to give you the knowledge and strategies to deal with those inquiries confidently.
Exactly.
And we're going to be drawing those insights from responding to regulatory inquiries with confidence.
Mm.
That's an episode from the new Compliance Officer's Playbook.
Really good one.
Yeah.
Those inquiries can be pretty daunting,
Yeah.
especially if you're going through it for the first time.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is the way to handle them effectively
Right.
really comes down to just a few core principles.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what your industry is or what the inquiry is about.
That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
So let's jump into those principles.
Okay.
The episode we're looking at starts with this strong analogy, comparing a regulatory inquiry to an interrogation.
Uh-huh.
What's the takeaway there?
The analogy really highlights how important it is to stay calm and composed.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about separating how you feel emotionally from the practical steps that
Yeah.
you need to take. It's kind of like a game of chess.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be strategic,
Right.
think ahead about what might happen,
Right.
and respond thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively.
Okay. I see that.
Yeah,
You don't just want to blurt out whatever comes to mind
exactly.
in an interrogation. And the same applies here.
Exactly.
So what's the first move in the strategic game?
Well, it starts with understanding the scope of the inquiry.
Okay.
You want to review that request really carefully,
Mm-hmm.
break it down with your team,
Right.
and you definitely want to get legal counsel involved.
Okay.
Don't just assume you know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Really take the time to figure out what's being asked
Right.
and what it means for your organization.
So it's like getting a mysterious package.
I want to just open it without looking it over first.
Exactly. You need to know what you're dealing with.
Right.
Is it a normal data request?
Mm,
Are they looking into a certain transaction?
okay.
Or are they launching a big investigation?
Right.
Understanding the kind of inquiry
Yeah.
and how big it is
Yeah.
will help you figure out how to respond
Okay.
and use your resources the right way.
That seems like a key first step.
Yeah.
What comes next once you've sort of assessed everything?
Well, once you know what you're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to acknowledge the inquiry.
Okay.
And you want to do it quickly and professionally.
Right.
This shows that you're willing to work with them
Mm-hmm.
and sets the tone for a good relationship with the regulatory body.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave them hanging
Right.
or make it seem like you're trying to hide something.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
it's also a good opportunity to talk about a deadline
Okay.
for when you'll respond.
This gives you the space to collect the info you need
Right.
and prepare a good response.
So no all-nighters unless they're absolutely necessary.
Right.
It's about setting realistic expectations
Sure.
from the beginning and talking to the regulator about your timeline.
Okay.
So once you've acknowledged the inquiry
Mm-hmm.
and set a deadline,
Right.
then the work really starts.
Okay.
You need to gather all the information.
Okay, so the intel gathering phase,
Mhm.
this sounds like it could get overwhelming.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
That's why the episode emphasizes staying focused.
Okay.
You really want to be targeted
Yeah.
on collecting the specific documents and data that are directly related to the inquiry.
Okay.
You don't want to overload them with extra stuff
Right.
or send them on a wild goose chase through irrelevant files.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's like packing for a trip.
Yeah.
You don't want to bring your whole wardrobe.
Right.
You just need a few outfits.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
a great analogy.
It really gets at what this step is all about.
Okay.
So while you're getting all that information,
Mm-hmm.
you also want to put together your brain trust.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah?
The brain trust.
Yeah.
So who makes it onto this team?
This is when you call in the pros.
Okay.
Your legal team compliance officers,
Mm-hmm.
specialists,
Yeah.
and any senior leaders who need to be kept in the loop.
Right.
This makes sure you're looking at the inquiry from different angles,
Yeah.
covering all the bases,
Mm-hmm.
and that your response fits with the organization's overall strategy.
So it's a group effort,
Exactly.
not a solo mission.
And who's on your brain trust might change,
Okay.
depending on what the inquiry is about.
Yeah.
If it's a complicated financial thing,
Mm-hmm.
you might need forensic accountants or valuation experts.
Okay.
If it's about data privacy,
Right.
you might need your IT security people.
Got it.
The point is to have a team with the right skills and experience
Okay.
to deal with the specific challenges of that inquiry.
That makes perfect sense. Having the right people with you is really important,
Definitely.
especially with something as potentially tricky as a regulatory inquiry.
Uh-huh.
So once you've gathered your team
Mm-hmm.
and all the necessary information,
Yeah.
what's the next step?
Well, then it's time to write your response.
Okay.
And the podcast has some great tips for this.
Okay, great.
Being clear and concise is super important.
Mm-hmm.
You want to address each point directly,
Right?
avoid jargon or language that's too technical.
Okay.
And above all, be honest.
Yeah.
If you don't know the answer to something,
Right.
it's better to say that
Yeah.
than to make something up
Mhm.
or give misleading information.
I see.
Okay.
So basically, like you're explaining it to a friend who
Yeah.
doesn't know all the technical stuff.
Exactly. You want to be transparent, accurate, and easy to understand.
Okay.
And for formatting,
Mm-hmm.
the episode suggests organizing your response,
Right.
the same way the inquiry is organized. So it's easier for them to follow your reasoning
Right.
and find what they're looking for.
It's all about making their job easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about documentation
Okay.
every step of the way.
Yeah.
From when you first looked at the inquiry
Right.
to the final version of your response,
Mm-hmm.
you should keep a clear and complete record of everything you do and decide.
So it's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs
Uh-huh.
so you can retrace your steps.
Exactly.
Okay.
This documentation shows you did your due diligence,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be really helpful if they have more questions
Okay.
or if things get more serious.
Okay. I'm starting to see why being careful and organized is
Yeah.
so important through this whole process.
Definitely.
But I'm also curious about the human side of things.
Yeah.
How do you handle the emotions involved?
Mm-hmm.
You know, regulatory inquiries can feel really personal,
Oh.
especially if you're deeply involved in the area they're looking at.
That's a good point. And the episode sort of touches on this.
Okay.
It talks about how important it is to stay objective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, remember, it's not about you personally.
Right.
It's about the facts and the data.
Easier said than done when you're under pressure, though.
I know.
Right.
Mhm.
What are some other ways to stay calm when things get intense?
Well, one thing that helps is looking at it from a different angle.
Okay.
Instead of seeing the inquiry as a threat,
Right.
try to see it as a chance
Okay.
to show that your organization is committed to compliance,
Right.
to make your internal processes stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and to build a better relationship with the regulator.
I really like that perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of dreading these things,
Yeah.
we can see them as a chance to improve our compliance.
Totally.
Yeah.
And remember, you're not the only one going through this.
Right.
Regulatory inquiries happen all the time in many industries,
Yeah.
and there are resources out there
Mm-hmm.
to help you through it.
Okay.
Talk to your network,
Yeah.
industry experts,
Mm-hmm.
or join professional groups
Right.
where you can learn from people who've been in the same boat.
So it's about tapping into that collective wisdom
Exactly.
and knowing that you're not the first to face this,
Uh-huh.
right?
By using these practical strategies
Okay.
and having a positive attitude,
Yeah.
you can approach regulatory inquiries confidently
Mm-hmm.
and even turn them into opportunities for growth and improvement.
Okay, I'm feeling much more confident now.
Good.
We've talked about a lot in this first part.
Yeah.
From understanding the different types of inquiries
Mm-hmm.
to how to write a good response
Right.
and how to stay confident through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go on to how to use these principles
Okay.
in other areas of your work and life,
Yeah.
I would like to hear.
It's really interesting how these principles we've been discussing
Right.
can actually be used in other areas besides compliance.
Oh, yeah.
You might be surprised how useful they are even in like healthcare.
Healthcare. Now that you mention it, I can see how regulatory inquiries
Right.
could be pretty common there.
Yeah.
You know, patient privacy billing practices.
Mhm.
There's a lot of sensitive information
Yeah,
and strict rules to follow.
definitely.
Yeah.
So let's say you're a healthcare provider
Okay.
and you get an inquiry from a regulatory body,
Mm-hmm.
like the Department of Health and Human Services,
Right.
maybe about how you're handling patient records
Okay.
or compliance with HIPAA.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
So what's the first step in that situation?
It's the same as what we've been talking about.
Okay.
First, you assess the situation.
Right.
Don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time to really review the inquiry
Yeah.
with your team and legal counsel.
Okay.
What exactly are they looking at?
Mm-hmm.
What could happen if you're not following the rules?
So it's all about understanding what's at stake right from the start.
Exactly.
Okay.
Once you have a clear picture,
Right.
you start gathering the necessary documents,
Mm-hmm.
patient records, billing statements,
Okay.
policies, procedures.
Yeah.
Always remember to stay focused on what's actually relevant. You don't want to bury them in paperwork.
I bet having a good electronic record-keeping system would be super helpful here.
It would be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Organized documents are your best friend
Right.
when it comes to these inquiries,
Yeah.
no matter what field you're in.
Okay.
Then, just like we said before,
Yeah.
you put together your brain trust,
Yeah.
legal counsel, senior leadership from your practice, maybe a compliance expert,
Okay.
anyone who can offer valuable insights.
So whether you're at a big company or a small practice,
Right.
that team approach is still key.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when it comes to writing your response, those same principles apply. Be clear, concise, and honest.
Right.
Address each point directly.
Okay.
Use plain language.
Yeah.
And don't hesitate to say if you need more time or if something needs to be explained better.
It really comes down to building trust through transparency.
You got it.
Yeah.
And remember, staying calm and objective the whole time
Right.
makes a big difference.
Okay.
These inquiries can be stressful,
Yeah.
but if you approach them level-headedly
Mm-hmm.
with a clear plan and open communication,
Right.
you'll be in a good position to handle it well.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
It's almost like a universal framework
Uh-huh.
that can be used across different industries
Exactly.
or situations.
It's not just healthcare either.
Okay.
Think about the tech world.
Right.
Data privacy is changing all the time.
Yeah.
And tech companies are getting more and more inquiries from regulators
Right.
about how they collect, store, and use user data.
Yeah. That's been all over the news lately.
It has.
So how would these strategies work in that scenario? Let's say a tech startup gets an inquiry from a data protection agency
Right.
about their user privacy policy.
Same playbook,
Okay.
just different players.
Yeah. Right.
First step, as always, understand exactly what they're asking.
Okay.
What parts of their data practices are being looked at?
Right.
What are the possible legal or financial consequences if they're not compliant?
They'd probably need to get their privacy policy together.
Right.
User agreements, data logs, maybe even records of user consent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having a solid data management system
Right.
and clear documentation practices really pays off here.
Okay.
It lets them get the info quickly and easily without having to scramble
All right.
or try to recreate a paper trail afterwards.
It's like having all your ingredients prepped and ready when you're cooking.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
It highlights how important preparation and organization are.
Yeah.
And just like in our other examples, they'd assemble their team,
Right.
legal team, maybe a data privacy expert, their CTO,
Okay.
senior leadership.
Yeah.
Together, they'd figure out what's going on, come up with a response strategy,
Right.
and write a clear and concise message to the agency.
So even though the industry and specifics are different,
Uh,
the basic approach stays the same.
it does.
Assess, gather, strategize, communicate, document.
Yeah,
It's almost like a mantra for handling any kind of regulatory challenge.
it really is.
Right.
That's what makes this framework so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a roadmap
Yeah.
to navigate these potentially stressful situations
Right.
with confidence and clarity,
Okay.
no matter what your field is
Hmm.
or the specific hurdle you're facing.
Okay. I'm starting to feel like I could handle a regulatory inquiry myself now.
Good.
But I'm also thinking about that human element again.
Mhm.
We've talked about strategies and processes,
Yeah.
but how do you manage the emotional side of things?
Right.
Especially if you're a small business owner
Uh-huh.
who doesn't have a big legal team
Yeah.
or years of experience dealing with regulators.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed
Right.
and intimidated,
Mhm.
especially if it's your first time.
Yeah.
And that's where that interrogation analogy becomes even more important.
Right.
It's all about staying calm and composed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most regulators
Yeah.
are just trying to make sure things are fair
Right.
and compliant in their industries.
Okay.
So take a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
separate your emotional reaction from the practical steps,
Yeah.
and remember, you're not alone in this.
Okay, one of the most powerful things you can do
Yeah.
is to remember that you're not the only one.
Exactly.
Right.
It happens to businesses of all sizes
Yeah.
across all industries.
All right.
Talk to your network mentors,
Mm-hmm.
join industry groups.
Okay.
You can connect with people who've dealt with similar things.
So it's about finding that support system
Mhm.
and realizing that others have been through this before
Exactly.
and come out.
And stronger on the other side.
Right.
And don't forget about preparation. The more you understand the rules in your industry,
Right.
the more confident you'll be
Mm-hmm.
when facing an inquiry.
Yeah.
Stay updated on the laws and regulations.
Okay.
Go to workshops or webinars. Get to know the agencies that oversee your field.
So knowledge is power, like they say. The more you know,
the
less you fear the unknown.
And another important thing is to remember that these inquiries,
right,
while they're often stressful, can be opportunities for growth.
Okay.
They can help you see where you can improve your compliance,
right,
make your internal processes stronger, and build a more resilient business.
I love that way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Turning a potential challenge into a chance for positive change.
It's almost like a checkup for your business.
Right.
It might not be fun at the time.
Yeah.
But it can help you stay healthy in the long run.
That's a great analogy.
And speaking of health,
yeah,
that brings us to another crucial part of responding.
Go. To these inquiries, one that often gets overlooked.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What's next on our list?
We've talked about strategies, processes, and mindset.
Right.
But there's one thing that can make or break your response.
Okay.
And that's communication.
Oh, communication.
Not just any communication, though.
Okay.
It's about mastering the art of communication.
Yeah.
Specifically for these situations.
Communication's key to pretty much everything in life.
It is.
But I imagine it's even more important when you're dealing with regulators.
You're right.
So break it down for us.
Okay.
What are the communication principles we need to master to sail through these rough waters?
Well, first things first.
Okay.
You want to have clear lines of communication with the regulatory body.
Right.
You should choose one person or small team
Okay.
to handle all the communication about the inquiry. This makes sure things are consistent.
Yeah.
And avoids confusion or mixed messages.
So no one going off on their own and sending their own responses? Exactly.
Right.
You want a coordinated strategy.
Okay.
And when you're talking to the regulator, always be prompt, professional, and respectful.
Right.
Address them formally.
Okay.
Use clear and concise language. And avoid jargon or terms they might not understand.
It's like writing a really important email.
Yeah.
You want to make sure it's well written and has the right tone.
Right.
You wouldn't want to accidentally hit reply all
Exactly.
with a snarky comment.
That's a great way to put it.
And just as important as talking to the regulator is talking to your own team.
Yeah.
Keep them updated on how the inquiry is going.
Any big decisions?
Okay.
And what it might mean for their work.
So it's about being transparent on both sides, keeping everyone in the loop and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay.
No
one likes to be left out.
Yeah.
Especially when things are uncertain.
And when you're communicating internally,
yeah,
it's also important to address any worries or concerns your team might have.
Right.
You know, these inquiries can be stressful.
Definitely.
And people might worry about their jobs.
Yeah.
Or the future of the company. So it's about being understanding and acknowledging that this can be tough emotionally.
Right.
You need to be a leader who not only gives information, but also offers support and reassurance.
You got it.
Yeah.
Let your team know that you're taking the inquiry seriously.
Right.
That you have a plan.
Yeah.
And that you'll keep them in the loop.
It's like being the captain of a ship in a storm. You need to keep your crew informed and calm even when things are rough.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
And here's something people often forget.
Okay.
Communication isn't just about talking.
Right.
It's also about listening. Really listen to the regulator's questions and concerns.
Okay.
And be willing to have a conversation.
Right.
Ask questions to clarify things. Try to see their point of view.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to admit
if
you need more information.
So it's a two-way street.
That is.
Not just sending out information, but also being open to what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's about building a relationship, not just checking off boxes.
By being a good listener,
yeah,
you can pick up on valuable clues.
Okay.
That might help you shape your response, clear up misunderstandings,
right,
or even see areas where you could improve things in your organization.
It's like a feedback loop. You're always learning and adapting based on the information you're getting.
And by mastering these communication principles, you can turn a situation that could be adversarial into a collaborative one.
Okay.
And you build trust along the way.
Think of it like a dance. You got to be in sync with your partner.
Yeah.
Anticipate their moves and respond gracefully. Right?
It's not about winning or losing. It's about finding that rhythm.
Yeah.
That lets you move forward together.
Okay, I'm really getting how important communication is.
Good.
It's not just words on a page. It's about connecting with people.
Right.
Building trust.
Yeah. And handling the situation skillfully.
You got it. And to extend that dance analogy,
Okay.
every dance needs a lead, right?
It does.
And every regulatory inquiry needs a leader.
Exactly.
Someone to manage the response, make the tough calls, and guide the organization through the process. So now we're talking about leadership.
We are.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Who is the best person to take on that role?
Well, it depends
Okay.
on how big the organization is and how it's structured.
Right.
But ideally, it's someone who really understands the regulations,
Okay.
has excellent communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
and can think strategically
Right.
and make good decisions under pressure.
That sounds like a tall order.
It can be.
Yeah.
This person is like a superhero. They need legal expertise,
Mhm.
communication skills,
Right.
and nerves of steel. Yeah, it's a demanding role for sure.
Yeah.
They'll be the main contact with the regulator,
Right.
coordinate the internal team, and make sure the inquiry is handled well.
So they're the quarterback,
Uh,
calling the plays.
and keeping the team on track.
Right.
They need to inspire confidence, give direction,
Mm-hmm.
and keep things moving forward, even when it's tough.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
It's not just about knowledge and decision-making, though.
Okay.
It's about leadership qualities, too.
Right.
This person needs to be able to build trust in their team, handle stress well,
Right.
stay positive and proactive,
Okay.
and be a calming force in the middle of everything.
So it's not just about brains, but also about heart.
Exactly.
Right.
They need to be the steady hand guiding the ship
Mm-hmm.
through the storm.
And here's something the podcast doesn't say explicitly,
Yeah.
but I think it's super important.
What's that? The leader needs to have the power to make decisions.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
They need the authority,
Mm-hmm.
access to the right resources.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to talk directly to senior leadership.
So no micromanaging or second-guessing from above.
Exactly.
Right.
They need to be able to do their job effectively.
Okay. And when the leader has that power and support,
Yeah.
it has a positive effect on the whole organization.
It does.
The team feels more confident. Communication is smoother.
And the whole process feels less overwhelming.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture.
Okay.
It's not just about following rules. It's about having the right people.
Right. The right mindset
Yeah.
and the right communication
Oh,
to handle these complex situations well.
you got it. And that leads us to another important thing about leadership.
Okay.
In this context, decision-making.
Right.
Because dealing with a regulatory inquiry often means
Right.
making tough choices under pressure. All right. I'm ready to dive into that decision-making maze.
Good.
What are some things leaders should consider when facing these high-stakes decisions?
One of the first things they have to decide
Okay.
is how transparent they want to be.
Right.
How much information do they share with the regulator? Do they want to be completely open?
Yeah.
Or do they want to be more careful
Right.
sharing information strategically?
That's a tough balance.
It is.
Right.
You want to work with them and show you're acting in good faith,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to protect your organization.
Yeah. And avoid unnecessary risks.
Exactly. There's no one right answer.
Right.
The best way to handle it depends on the situation,
Okay.
what the inquiry is about,
Mm-hmm.
the nature of the allegations,
Yeah.
and the potential risks and benefits
Yeah.
of being more or less transparent.
I see.
It's a judgment call
Right.
that often needs input from legal counsel and senior leaders.
So it's not a decision to take lightly.
It's not.
It requires careful thought and a deep understanding of the situation.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
And once they've decided on their general approach to transparency,
Mm-hmm.
the leader will need to make decisions about specific information,
Right.
which documents to hand over,
Okay.
which witnesses to make available,
Mm-hmm.
which questions to answer fully and honestly,
Right.
and which ones to maybe deflect or challenge.
It's like a game of chess
Yeah,
where every move could have consequences later on.
that's a great analogy. Throughout this whole process,
Mm-hmm.
the leader needs to constantly think about the risks and rewards of different options.
Okay.
What could happen legally if they reveal certain information?
Mm-hmm.
What are the risks to their reputation if they seem uncooperative?
Right.
What are the financial costs if the investigation drags on?
It's a real balancing act.
It is.
So it takes a leader who's comfortable
Yeah.
working in a gray area
Uh,
where there are no easy answers
right.
or clear solutions.
Yeah, they need to be able to think critically,
Mm-hmm.
consider different viewpoints,
Right.
and make informed decisions.
Yeah. Even with limited information.
You've got, and there's another important aspect of decision-making,
Okay.
in this context. Timing.
Timing. Okay.
When to respond, how fast to gather information,
Right.
when to bring in outside experts, when to escalate things to senior leadership.
Okay.
These are all time-sensitive choices that can really affect the outcome.
So it's not just about making the right decisions. It's about making them at the right time.
Exactly.
Right.
You need to know when to act, when to wait, and when to change course.
And that's where the leader's experience, judgment, and intuition come in.
It is.
Right.
They need to be able to assess the situation quickly, get the information they need, talk to the key people, and make decisions under pressure.
Okay.
Often without having all the facts.
So the leader needs to be a master multitasker.
Yeah.
A strategic thinker.
A skilled communicator.
Right.
And a bit of a mind reader all at the same time. You're not wrong.
But the good news is...
What's that?
These leadership skills can be learned and developed.
It can.
Over time.
By looking for opportunities to learn, observing experienced leaders, reflecting on past experiences, and seeing challenges as chances to grow.
Yeah.
People can become better leaders and more confident in these situations.
So you're not born a leader.
Right.
It's about developing those skills over time.
It is.
Right.
Through experience, mentorship, and being willing to learn and adapt. That's a really empowering message.
It is.
Because it means anyone can develop those leadership abilities.
Right.
No matter their background or experience. It's about recognizing that leadership isn't a position.
Okay.
It's a practice.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It means leadership isn't some magical thing that only some people have.
It's a set of skills you can learn and practice and improve. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by creating a culture of leadership development, we can have a workforce that's better prepared to handle not just regulatory inquiries, but any unexpected challenge.
It's about creating a culture where people feel empowered to step up and take ownership and make a difference. Okay, I'm feeling inspired.
Good.
We've covered so much in this deep dive.
We have.
From understanding how regulatory inquiries work to the details of communication, leadership.
Yeah, and decision-making.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, you were saying before that these principles we've been talking about, communication, leadership, and decision-making, they can be used in other situations too, not just for regulatory inquiries.
Right.
Can you give us some real-life examples, like how these skills could be useful in business or even personal life? How can we take what we've learned and apply it to our everyday challenges?
You know, I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Because at their heart, these skills are all about dealing with complicated situations.
Okay.
Managing uncertainty. And building relationships. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a regulator, a coworker, a client. Or even a family member.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's get specific.
Okay.
How could someone use these skills in a tough negotiation at work? Like trying to get a raise, negotiating a new contract, or even resolving a conflict with a colleague.
So let's say you're trying to get a raise.
Okay.
It can be stressful.
Definitely.
And emotions can run high.
Right.
But what's interesting is that the same principles we talked about for regulatory inquiries can help you handle this too.
Really? I wouldn't have thought of that.
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Preparation is key in both cases.
Okay.
Just like you'd gather all the relevant information before responding to a regulator, you'd research salary data for your position, get feedback on your work, and clearly explain what you bring to the company before you go into a salary negotiation.
So it's about doing your research, knowing what you're worth, and having the right information.
And then there's clear communication.
Right.
You have to be able to explain your goals, listen to the other person, and be willing to compromise and find creative solutions that work for both of you.
I see.
These are the same communication skills you need for a regulatory inquiry.
Okay. I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
It's about being assertive but respectful, finding common ground.
Yeah, and reaching an agreement that benefits everyone. You got it.
And remember how we talked about staying calm and objective? That's really important in negotiations too. Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the emotions.
Right.
Especially when it's about something as personal as your salary.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel undervalued or frustrated. And that can ruin the negotiation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you can take a step back,
Right.
control your emotions, and stick to the facts, you're much more likely to get a good outcome.
Okay.
And just like with a regulatory inquiry, documentation is important in negotiations, too.
Right.
Keep track of everything.
Yeah.
Emails, agreements, concessions. This helps avoid misunderstandings later on.
Okay.
And make sure everyone is on the same page.
Okay. I'm convinced.
Good.
These skills really do apply to other areas of work.
They do.
But what about personal life? Can you give an example of how someone could use these principles in a family conflict? You know, those can be even more emotionally charged than work stuff.
Absolutely. Let's say there's a disagreement between siblings.
Okay.
Over taking care of an elderly parent. It's something many of us face.
Yeah.
And it can be really tough.
Right.
Both practically and emotionally.
I can imagine.
You have to think about everyone's schedules.
Yeah.
Finances. How much everyone can handle emotionally.
Right.
And, of course, the parents' needs and wishes. You're right.
It's a lot.
And in these situations where feelings are strong.
Yeah.
And it's personal. These principles become even more important.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Yeah.
How would you apply these principles to a family situation like that?
The first thing is to recognize and acknowledge everyone's feelings.
Okay.
Just like you try to understand the regulator's perspective, you need to empathize with each sibling.
Right.
And realize their feelings are valid.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with them.
So it's about creating a space where everyone feels heard and respected.
Exactly.
Like saying, I see where you're coming from and I respect how you feel, even if I don't feel the same way.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about setting the stage for a productive conversation.
Right.
Not shutting down or dismissing anyone.
And then you shift the focus from emotion to problem solving.
Exactly.
Right.
What are each sibling's specific needs and worries?
Yeah.
What are the practical difficulties in caring for their parent? Once you've figured out the main issues, you can start working together to find solutions.
So it's about moving away from blame and accusations and working together as a family to find the best solution for everyone.
And remember how important clear communication is.
Yeah.
That's essential in family conflicts, too.
Okay.
Don't make assumptions. Be direct and honest about your needs and concerns.
Right, yeah.
And really listen to what your siblings are saying.
So have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
But do it with respect and compassion.
And with the goal of finding a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. So even though the stakes are different, the approach is pretty similar.
It is.
Preparation, in this case, emotional preparation.
Right. And self-awareness.
Clear communication, problem solving.
Right.
And working together towards a common goal.
And did you say documentation was important here, too?
It can be.
Really?
Especially if you're making agreements about things like caregiving schedules, financial responsibilities, or who makes decisions about medical care.
Right.
Having those things written down can help prevent misunderstandings later.
Wow, I'm really surprised by how widely applicable these principles are.
Yeah.
It's like a universal toolkit for dealing with challenges.
That's a great way to think about it.
And here's another parallel I find interesting.
What's that?
Just like regulatory inquiries can be learning opportunities for organizations, family conflicts can be chances for growth and understanding within families.
That's a great point.
Right.
Instead of seeing these situations as just bad, we can see them as opportunities to make our relationships stronger, learn about ourselves and each other, and ultimately become closer as a family. You said that perfectly.
By approaching these situations with the same skills and mindset that we'd use for a regulatory inquiry, we can handle them with more grace, confidence, and success.
Okay. I'm convinced that these skills are like superpowers.
Yeah.
That can help us overcome all kinds of challenges.
They really are.
And it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about having a growth mindset.
Right.
Always learning and developing these skills.
You couldn't have said it better.
And we don't have to wait for a crisis to start working on these skills, right?
We can practice them every day.
Okay.
With colleagues, friends, family. Even in those little moments of friction or disagreement. So it's about being mindful.
Yeah.
Intentional.
And looking for ways to grow as communicators, leaders, and people. Absolutely. By doing that, we become more resilient, more confident, and better able to handle whatever comes our way.
Whether it's a regulatory inquiry, a negotiation, a family conflict, or anything else. Well, I think we've figured out how to master not just regulatory inquiries, but challenges of all kinds.
It's been an amazing journey.
It has.
And I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to deal with life's ups and downs.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And remember, the most important takeaway is that you're not alone.
Right.
We all face challenges, make mistakes, and we can all learn and grow from those experiences.
Right.
So keep going, keep learning, and remember, you got this.
That's a great way to end it.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned some valuable things that you can use in your own life, both at work and at home.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep working on mastering the art of facing life's challenges.